Well, good evening, everybody. So pleased to see so many of you out here spending your Saturday night with us in downtown St. Mary's at the Grand. And we have a lot in store for you, and it is going to be a night that we're going to be talking about for a long, long time. And so glad that you are here. Hopefully, the Memorial High School Alumni Foundation, who is putting this event on, as you came into the lobby, that you were able to get your ticket for the trip for two to Tucson, Arizona, to hopefully meet 1941 MHS graduate Richard Bouchon, who works Thursdays at the 390th Wing Aviation Museum. And somebody is going to win that trip. And hopefully that you get your tickets and you're able to make that trip out there soon. So hopefully you have your ticket. Hopefully you bought tickets. And it's also my job to encourage you to continue to buy tickets to increase your probability of winning that trip out there. All kinds of other great raffle prizes that have been provided for you to win, take home. And part of this is all about helping the MHS Alumni Foundation fulfill its mission. And I've been involved with a lot of groups, and this MHS Alumni Foundation does incredible work, has been doing incredible work. And if you saw the Hall of Fame induction a couple of weeks ago, you saw just one example of the great things that they are doing. And if I could we get a round of applause for the MHS Alumni Foundation? When we get started, we're going to have a panel conversation of memories and reflections of times of serving from Norbricker, Vietnam, Don Martindale, Korea, Preston Keith. Justin Chisholm is here. He will be up after intermission, but Preston and Justin with the War on Global Terrorism. And then Christy Wibbler is here to talk on behalf of her father, who served during World War II. And Christy is going to share some memories and reflections that have been shared with her from her father, Ralph Denning. So just an absolute incredible couple hours in store for you. And one last round of thanks that we need to give. The VFW Post 9289, honoring hometown heroes. If you see the banners, talking about the banners, if you've ever noticed our banners in comparison to other towns' banners, second to none. You know, it's just absolutely incredible the work that honoring our hometown heroes do. The MHS Alumni Foundation, the Veterans Foundation Museum and Museum of St. Mary's, the American Legion Post 323, and Eagles 767 are the sponsors of this great evening. So it's so good to see so many of you here, and we're going to kick it off, and you're going to just be blown away with Tegan Patterson sharing the national anthem with us. So if everybody would please rise, and Tegan Patterson, welcome her to the stage, please.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
And as the evening progresses, if there is something that you want to make certain you ask of our guest, make that mental note, put it into your phone, write it down on a napkin, because we will have a Q&A at the very end, and we hope that we have a great question and answer with our guest. Before we get to our guest, we're going to play a short video introducing the video of Gene Dennis.
Gene Alton Dennis was born on December 27, 1925, in Tipton County, Indiana, the only child of Byron and Margaret Dennis. His family moved to Lima, Ohio, and then to St. Mary's, Ohio, for his father's work at Nickel Plate Railroad. He graduated from St. Mary's Memorial High School in 1944. Gene enjoyed everything about railroads and learned Morse code from his father. He also enjoyed reading about the exploits of Colonel Roscoe Turner, a stunt pilot, and the Army Air Force during World War II. Shortly after graduation, at age 17, Gene enlisted in the Army Air Force on June 19, 1944, during World War II. He attended aviation cadet training at Keesler Field, Mississippi. Out of a group of 160 students, Gene was one of the 6 selected for pilot training at Spence Field in Moultrie, Georgia. While there, he received an appointment to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point by Representative Robert F. Jones of Ohio's 4th District. In March 1945, he attended Army Pre-Cadet Training School in Amherst, Massachusetts. He was awarded the Good Conduct Medal in May 1945 for exemplary behavior, efficiency, and fidelity. He was honorably discharged from the Army in June 1945. Dennis took the entrance examinations and was determined to be efficient in Spanish, so he left the USMA, attended the Sullivan Preparatory School, and retook the entrance examinations the following year. He was readmitted as a member of the class of 1950. He was appointed Supply Sergeant of Company M of the 1st Regiment of the United States Corps of Cadets in October 1949, and he was among 671 cadets who graduated on June 6, 1950. He was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force on June 2, 1950, and assigned first to Randolph Field in San Antonio for flight training, and then reassigned to Goodfellow. He was in the first group to solo and was identified as a natural by his flight commander. Gene was selected for advanced jet training at Williams Air Force Base in Arizona and was one of the first to solo in the T-33 jet trainer. His mother proudly pinned his silver pilot wings on him on August 4, 1951, Class 51E, as an F-80 jet fighter pilot in Chandler, Arizona. Gene then attended fighter combat crew training at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. He developed a reputation there as an outstanding fighter pilot and was selected to attend theater indoctrination at Johnson Air Base in Japan. In a memorial posted on the United States Military Academy class of 1950 site, it describes an accident that occurred during an F-80 training flight in which Gene showed remarkable professional skill. There was a complete electrical failure and engine flameout. Instead of ejecting, Gene elected to land the F-80, making a belly landing and saving the aircraft from destruction. That same day, Gene received orders to report to the 474 Fighter Bomber Group in Korea. He flew a F-84E Thunderjet fighter with the 428th Fighter Bombardment Squadron, completing 20 combat missions, and was awarded the Air Medal. On September 28, 1952, he was pilot 4 of 4 on a combat mission targeting a main supply route known as Red 3, 2 miles south of Hukyeori, near Pyongyang, North Korea. The first 3 planes began their bombing run when they noticed the 4th plane, Gene's, was missing. They reported seeing an explosion and hearing a garbled radio message that sounded like, "Baker Leader, I'm hit," or "They hit me." His plane is believed to have been shot down by a MiG-15. No parachute was observed, and there were no reports of Gene being held as a prisoner of war. Gene was listed as missing in action. On December 31, 1952, he was declared dead. First Lieutenant Gene A. Dennis was awarded the Purple Heart Medal, Air Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Korean Service Medal, Republic of Korea Service Medal, and the United Nations Service Medal, Korea Presidential Unit Citation, United Nations Service Medal, the Republic of Korea War Service Medal, and the Good Conduct Medal. His name is inscribed on the Courts of the Missing at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu. His name is also inscribed on the Korean War Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. A headstone commemorates his life and service at Memorial Park Cemetery in Lima, Ohio. For his outstanding skills as a pilot in the Air Force, for graduating from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and for his dedication to country, the St. Mary's Memorial High School Alumni Foundation inducts First Lieutenant Gene A. Dennis into the St. Mary's Memorial High School Alumni Foundation Hall of Fame for military service to country.
And thank you, Gene, for your service. And if you have not had the opportunity to sign the petition to send to Washington, D.C. to put extra focus on bringing Gene Dennis back home, please do so. It's in the back of the theater, and we would love for you to sign it. Kim Ryer. Kim is really the brainchild of Writer Veterans Talk. Kim is very passionate about celebrating veterans, recognizing the service that all veterans have put forth, and instrumental in the museum that will be in the city of St. Mary's Administration Building. Kim is instrumental in making the theater look like the Pacific Theater, North Africa, wherever it may be. And I'm going to turn it over to Kim to get this panel started. Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Ryer.
Thank you. As Diana Dominguez and I were writing this book, and we're working on volume 2, I had the opportunity to interview each of these people that were sitting up here with us right now, along with many others, and about their military service. And one thing I really like to ask is right off the bat is, why did you join the military? And I get a lot of the same answers, but it's always an interesting journey trying to find out how somebody went from high school or graduation or the job into the military. Christy Wibbler is with us. She's the daughter of First Lieutenant Ralph Dennings, a World War II veteran aviator. And we've had a few discussions about her dad, and our research into First Lieutenant Dennings is in its infancy right now, and we're going to include him in volume 2 of the Hometown Heroes book. So we don't know a lot about him, but we've had a lot of letters, memorabilia, records, almost anything you can think of shared with us by Christy Wibbler. And we've been very busy reading letters and trying to put together his career. So, Christy, if you know, your dad ever say anything on how he decided to go into the military?
Yes, he told us that he didn't want to be drafted because if you were drafted, you didn't get to choose where you went or what position that you took in the service. And so he enlisted so that he could choose which service he wanted to be in.
And I've heard that answer many times over again, how, especially during times of the draft, during World War II, Korea, Vietnam, that, it's best not to get stuck on a battleship. You might as well just join the Army or the Marine Corps and get it over with. So in 1942, I believe, your dad entered the Army Air Force, and as a cadet, and I know from doing some reading that he had taken some flight training and actually got his pilot's license and was flying aircraft light observation plane. If you know anything about that, if you were able to find that in some of his letters.
Well, first of all, my father did not like talking about his war experience. And if we asked him a question or he decided to share something with us, he'd get very emotional. So our talks about his time in the war were very far and few and far between. But in fact, I didn't know he was a pilot till Kim told me.
Oh, my.
Because he passed away in 2019, and my mother just passed away this past May. And going through their house and emptying their house, we found all these boxes that I didn't even know were in our house. And the boxes were filled with everything, uniforms, down to the sewing kit that they get. So if a button pops off their uniform, they can be back in working order, and letters, bunches of letters. My mother was back here in St. Mary's waiting to get married to Dad, and I found some letters, and then in another box I found some more letters, and in another box I estimated that there was about 475 letters that he had saved in these boxes.
Wow.
Him to her and her to him. And they're really interesting to read. And I try to imagine my dad sitting there writing these letters, and it has me seeing him in a different light. I also learned that the word of the day in 1944 was swell. So that was in practically every letter that I read. But she was waiting here, and they were going to get married, and she planned the whole wedding here, and Dad's leave got canceled. And so she hopped on a bus and went down to Texas, and they got married by an officer down there who, in her wedding, Dad was the only one she knew. And then they took their honeymoon. They went to the movies. That was big back then. Most notably about that whole experience was that Dad had his dress uniform on and he sat in gum. Oh. That's the story he told us about World War II. That was it. And then they went to a diner to have supper, and because it was Meatless Tuesday, they had to have fish. And that was that he shared with us. And but as far as what position he held, being a pilot, didn't know. But he was a bombardier, I did know that. And he had shown pictures of where a bombardier sits. And through my reading that book and things I looked up online and everything, I found out that I knew the bombardier sat below in the bottom of the plane and was surrounded by a clear something. I'm thinking bulletproof, shattered something. In my research, it was plexiglass. Wow. And he was sitting there surrounded by plexiglass so he could see all different directions and see if if they were being followed or whatever. So yeah, that's what he shared with us. Do you want me to tell about his missions and stuff, or?
Sure, go right ahead. I have a logbook right here that I'm going to share eventually and read a couple of narratives that he had written in here, but yes.
Yeah. He went on 35 missions altogether, and he was stationed in England for that part of his service. And through Kim again getting me information, I found out he was awarded a European, African, Middle Eastern Medal with 4 Bronze Stars and a Distinguished Flying Cross Air Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters. Had no idea that he had been awarded any of that till we came across them in a box that came up from the basement a couple of months ago. In all, they hit 41 targets in Germany and 59 in enemy-occupied Europe. In total, they dropped 4,700 tons of bombs, and they aimed at mainly ammunition dumps, places that housed drums and drums of gasoline. Those were the types of sites that they were bombing at that time. So I found a lot. At first, I was not happy that Kim asked me to come up here, but I'm glad that he did now, because I learned a lot more about my dad just reading letters and reading papers that were in all of these boxes. So thank you, Kim, for giving me that opportunity.
And one thing we found out about the letters is they're just a gold mine of information. A lot of them from World War II were censored. There was always a censor that intercepted the mail going back to the United States, but you could still piece together what was happening. And a lot of them are written in cursive, which I grew up with cursive. I can read it, but there's just a particular vernacular that people back in the 40s used, and it's sometimes really difficult to cipher. But it's really a gold mine what we got from Ralph Dennings, just hundreds of letters, and I think it's going to take a long time for us to get through those. And it's similar to Frank Eberly, who was killed just before the Battle of the Bulge. We were fortunate enough to get a collection of letters, a lot of letters that Frank had written home prior to his death in 1944. And what we found was in Ralph Dennings' logbook, he actually flew a mission in support of the troops on the ground at the Battle of the Bulge, and he details the entire thing in there, and he was awarded one of those Bronze Stars on his air medal for that. One thing that the bombardiers had in common is partway through the war in Europe, the aviators received the new Norden bomb sight, and Richard Bushong, who I believe we'll see a video on him later, told me when we were having a discussion that the Germans really liked it once that was installed in their aircraft. He was a B-17 pilot, but they were much more accurate in bombing their targets and not bombing civilian areas. If you want to see some of Ralph Dennings' uniforms, they're over here on display, as well as his medals. And he did receive the Distinguished Flying Cross for his missions over occupied Europe. And I would like to just, he wrote this notebook on every mission that he flew on, and it's very interesting reading, and it's actually all printed, so it's easy to read. And I'll just read a couple excerpts from it. July 11th, 1944, Munich, Germany, 1,300 miles, 40 100-pound bombs, intense flak, 9 hours, no fighters, forced landing on the English coast, ran out of gas. The next day, July the 12th, 1944, Munich, Germany, 1,300 miles of flying, 6 500-pound bombs, and 4 500-pound incendiary bombs. Light flak, no fighters, had to abort over the French and Belgian border, lost number 1 engine. July the 16th, 1944, Saarbrücken, I believe it is, Germany, 900 miles, 12 500-pound bombs, intense flak, no fighters, number 1 engine ran out of gas, and then the whole plane ran out of gas, which seemed to be quite a
Happening a lot.
mess. Here's one, July 24th of 1944, Saint-Lô battlefront in France. Not dropped. 600 miles, 32 260-pound fragmentary bombs, moderate flak, no fighters. Lost engine before we started, but went anyway. Yeah. A plane in the other group blew up. And in the very back of this, if I can find the Battle of the Bulge was on December 16th, and right after December 16th, they flew a mission in support of that. December 23rd, 1944, Juckerath, if I pronounced that right, Germany. Visual 800 miles, 12 500-pound GP bombs, 6-hour mission, rode with Thompson, who would be the pilot. Flew in support of ground troops that are being pushed back, bombed roads and railroads with good results. Between 500 and 600 guns fired at us to the target. 15 minutes of terrific, intense flak, worst I've ever been. All 40 ships received battle damage. Holden's last, which meant the pilot's last mission before he got shipped back home. And in the 8th Air Force, which is what they were all in, Ralph and Richard Bushong, just in different squadrons and different aircraft. But in the very back, he notes that how many crewmen were killed during their mission. Wunderlich killed while forming, hit prop wash, lost the tail, crashed into a small lake. Vogel crashed on takeoff, pulled the ship up too soon, stalled exploded at the end of the runway. Baker, a direct hit by flak over Saint-Lô, exploded and burned, and it just goes on and on about how many crewmen they lost. And there were, I think the statistics is only 15% of the aviators made it through all their 25 required missions to receive the Distinguished Flying Cross, and the rest of them either killed, wounded, taken prisoner, or otherwise couldn't complete their mission.
And they're a living primary source of the greatest generation. Pretty awesome.
So once we get done going through all the letters and all the records and such, we hope to put together a nice feature in our second Hometown Heroes book on the service of First Lieutenant Ralph Dennings.
Well, Christy, thank you for sharing about your father.
You're welcome.
And especially the little 2 nuggets that you only knew about his time in World War II and everything that you're finding. Don Martindale, we interviewed, I've called him Cork forever, so you're going to hear me call him Cork. Kim interviewed him several months ago, and I absolutely loved how he became a Marine, the story that he told. So, Kim, I think it kind of dovetails in your question, how did you decide to join? And Cork, tell the story. How did you become a Marine?
All right, well, when I was growing up, everybody knew you was going to go in the service. And so when I thought about going in the Air Force, and then things happened that I didn't go. And then finally I decided wait till I got drafted. So I got my draft notice that said, "Greetings, you have been selected by your friends and neighbors to volunteer for the armed service." So we went to Cincinnati, and we was all standing there in line. And this was in August of 51, and the Marines had just started taking draftees that volunteered, and we stand there, and there's a big Marine about the size of the North walked in the door, And he said, I want 3 of you boys to volunteer for the Marines. So we stand there, and I tell everybody that we stand there, and everybody, he said, take 1 step forward. And I said, everybody else took 1 step backwards. And there I was, standing there. She said, come on, boys. So we went. And then they put us on a bus at night in the evening and headed for Atlanta, Georgia. And that was the first time after that we found out that the Civil War was still going on. The back of the bus, nobody was back there, so I went back and laid down in the back of the bus. I was going to sleep all night. And when the bus got to this first town in Tennessee, the bus driver came back and woke me up, made me sit. He said, you got to sit up in the front of the bus. You're not allowed back here. And then when we got down to Atlanta, we went into the bus station, and there was signs all over, said whites only at this drinking fountain and things. So that's something that I'd never seen before or even heard of. And then at all the big city bus stations always had big restaurants in them. And I remember I ordered breakfast, and the waitress brought out my bacon and eggs and toast and coffee and a little bowl of white stuff there. So I said to her, I said, what's that white stuff? She said, that's grits, you damn Yankee.
You damn Yankee.
So anyway, from then we went on to Parris Island, where I was there for about 10, 12 weeks. I forget just what it was. And then when we got back, one of the things about my boot camp was we started out the drill instructors. There were 2 sergeants and 1 corporal. And this 1 corporal was telling all these other 2 sergeants what to do and all that, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. Anyway, and when we finished boot camp, we had 10-day leave, and when we went back to Parris Island, our drill instructor came over where we were and talked to us about it, and he was a corporal, but he was really a nice guy, but he told us that what was going on while he was ordering the Marines around, the sergeants around. He had been a staff sergeant, and he had gotten busted for maltreatment of recruits. So anyway, and from then we went to shipped out to California.
And one thing, Don, that happened before you got drafted is you'd already spent some years at Ohio Northern University, or at
Right,
some
just
period of
1
time.
year, yeah, 1 year there.
So you were in pretty good shape before you went to boot camp.
Well, yeah, I was working out for football all summer long, and when I got drafted, I was already in shape for football, so boot camp was really fairly easy for me, but some of these guys that had worked in offices and things, they were in bad shape.
Right. And one other thing is that you did a little bit of time learning how to be a lineman with DP&L.
Yeah, after I had worked for the Dayton Power and Light as an apprentice lineman. So when I went in the Marines, they took that, and that's why they made me a wireman. Gave me that MOS number.
And that a very important job, being a wireman, for communication purposes.
Well, yeah, back then, they didn't have all the communication or the electronics they have today. They had, well, the Marines on patrol and things had little radios. Some were called handy-talkies and others were called walkie-talkies, and they were only good for a mile or so. But then the regiments all had shortwave radio, and that's where they sent things by Morse code. But then most of the traffic between the things was by wire. They had what these field telephones called EE8s, and we ate strung wire from, well, I feel kind of, well, what happens, I was usually about 4 or 5, I was stationed about 4 or 5 miles behind the lines. I was never really up on the lines, but we would take, run wires and things up to them and things. And I was in Korea for about a year, and the only thing I used to say I was one warm body, but I got thinking maybe I should have said I was one cold body.
How did you come to find out that you were going to go to Korea? You had already been through your training in California, and
Oh, we knew that when we went to Camp Pendleton. They told us at what month we were going. We were in what was called the 16th replacement draft, and that was one a month, a draft a month from that. And so we knew from the time that we got out of Parris Island that we were going to go to Korea in January.
how did your division or your replacement company get from California to Korea?
Well, we were on a ship for about 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah, yeah. And then we landed there, and never forget, it was on the Sea of Japan, and the Marines at that time were on the east coast of Korea, and the mountains extended clear out to the ocean. Anyway, we were there for about a month, and then the whole Marine Division moved westward and guarded Seoul. By that time, the lines had pretty much kind of calmed down a little bit, or they're stationary around the 38th parallel. And so it moved back and forth a little bit, but most of it was right about there. So the Marines were moved over to north of Seoul, so it had already fallen a couple times, and they recaptured it. So we were over there then the rest of the time.
And then you moved around when you were in Korea a little bit with your
Yes.
job.
Right. Yes.
And then, so that encompassed a lot of pulling of commo wire and
Yeah, right,
setting
yeah.
up field phones.
Right.
And
Yeah.
how was that done? I mean, how did that wire get from
Well-
point A to point B?
Some of it you carried, and then others, usually you couldn't get from one place to another. Well, if you've been in a mountainous area, if a town or if a unit was 3 or 4 miles away, by the time you could drive a Jeep there, you might have to go 10 miles or something to go way around. But to go straight to there, you had to mainly walk. But we had South Korean workers that helped to carry the wire and things. And like I say, there were I got to go to a lot of different units where the Marines were, so I got to see a lot of people that I knew in different areas. We'd go there and where the units were and look them up. And when some of them come to visit me, they'd come back there and said, "Gee, you're living like a tourist." But other than that, I was there a year, and it was really, we didn't get up to where it was like when the Marines were trapped up to Chosin Reservoir. It got to be some nights 40 below zero.
Oh,
but
my.
where I was, a little bit south there, north of Seoul, the coldest it ever got was 20 below zero. But that was pretty cold when you're sleeping in tents every night.
Oh, my.
Wow.
And but
And at some point, didn't you get sick when you were there?
Yeah, I developed malaria, and I got to go to one of these field hospitals that looked just like with MASH, when you see these hospitals. And I was there for a while, but there wasn't any nurses there. They were all Navy corpsmen. But I was there till I...
No hot lips there for you, huh?
What?
No hot lips, Houlihan?
Right, yeah.
That's how I met
Yeah,
my
then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then you were fortunate, you got out of Korea unscathed, and you went back home, and where did you finish your enlistment at?
Camp Lejeune. Well, it was a part of Camp Lejeune. I can't think of the
Maybe
name of
Camp Geiger
Yeah,
and
Camp Geiger.
Cherry
that's it.
Point.
Camp Geiger was right there. It was part of Camp Lejeune. So we finished out there, mainly just waited out there until my time was up. And then I was lucky enough to, I went back to school. And when I was in college, I met a guy named Skip Bachman. And we became good friends. And I was football coach at Spencerville, and he got the St. Mary's job, and he needed another assistant, so he talked me into moving down here. So in 1959, we moved to St. Mary's, and I helped coach football for about 7 years here.
And Cork, isn't it the truth, and I think he's in the audience, that you left, which paved the way for Roger Duncan, and if Roger
Yeah.
Duncan didn't coach right, it's
Right.
because of you?
Yeah, right, yeah,
That's the story I've always heard.
yeah.
If you wanted to assess blame on anybody, you had to put it on Cork, because he made the opening happen.
Yeah, yeah. But that was about it.
Well, Mr. Martindale has the National Defense Service Medal, the Korean Service Medal, and the United Nations Service Medal for his service in the United States Marine Corps. So thank you very much.
And I'm curious, if you'd raise your hand, how many of you had Mr. Martindale as a student? Whoa, Cork.
No,
It all makes sense now, he was a Marine.
Yeah.
Makes a whole lot of sense now. Number 5.
yeah.
Well, speaking of Marines, Norb Ricker is with us. He served in the Marine Corps and is also a Vietnam veteran. And I would pose the same question to you, Norb, as what made you join the military in general?
Well, my friend Jim Clark, he was 1 year younger than me in school. And he had this idea that he wanted to go in the Marines because his dad said he couldn't handle it. So I waited a year till he graduated, and then we went in. 5 of us went in together. And Mike Clark, you're out there? Hello.
There he is,
Where are you at? I can't see.
to the left, on the aisle.
Simplify, Mike.
Mike's uniform and his father's uniform from World War I are both displayed over there.
Wow.
So you guys all went in together. Was there, like other people say, was there any consideration that I think I'll just join the Marines straight up because I don't want to get drafted and end up on a battleship, or were you determined to go to the Marine Corps?
No, we just were adventurous. We're we was gonna couldn't find a job here, and that was the biggest thing. We couldn't find a steady good job, so that's what we did.
And what year was that you decided to join the Marines?
61.
In 1961. And how did that process work? I mean, did you go to the recruiter?
Recruiter came to us. Oh, yeah. Yeah, once we signaled him, yeah, he came to us, come to our house, yeah. And we was on a 90 delay program or something like that, because that worked better for his recruitment status. You know, that
Right.
he could fill in his spots better that way,
You got credit.
yeah.
Where did you go then when you left for the Marine Corps?
Where did I go? Paris Island.
You went to Paris Island?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where you got your basic training, and then
Yeah.
on to, did you go to Camp Geiger after that for your infantry training?
We graduated from Paris Island, went home for 10 days vacation, then we come back to Camp Geiger for our infantry training.
And how would you describe your experience in basic training? I mean, did you get along okay with it, or were there?
I got along great with it, yeah. I enjoyed it. The physical part that was me. I was active.
I saw your pictures from basic training, and I believe you didn't have much trouble with it.
No, I did not have any trouble with it.
So you had actually spent time in the Marines before you were sent to Vietnam, and where did you go then? Where was your first duty station?
Well, we went on ship for a year, 3 different cruises. We partied.
And you, so you went to the Caribbean or to the Med or
I
some
went to
places like
I
that?
went to the Med. That was 6 months. That was great. Went on a aircraft carrier, converted onto a helicopter ship, and good duty. Yeah, got us went to a lot of ports over there in Europe, and like I said, we partied.
Yeah. And what kind of accommodations did they have for the Marines on those ships?
We were stuck down in compartments. Our bunks was 4 and 5 high. We were pretty tight. We had to get along because we slept pretty much together, you know. 2 rows of bunks back to back on up, yeah. And then the biggest part of our day was waiting in meal line. You got meal passes. You had different colors because there's so many people on there, and when they called your color, then you get in line. And by the time you got done with dinner, you was about ready to get in line again for supper.
So that was the highlight of the cruise. What ports of call were you able to take in?
Well, we was in Spain a lot. We went in there. Now, we just didn't go to ports of call. We had training on their beaches too. That we had to do that. We'd go out 2 or 3 days at a time and pull maneuvers. But we went to 4 different ports in Spain. Was in Portugal. Was in Italy. So yeah, it was great. Got a lot of pictures.
I saw some of them. So after that duty in Lejeune, I think you may have had an opportunity to maybe go up to Adak, Alaska for a duty station?
Yes, I was getting bored with Lejeune, and they posted duty posts on the board, and anybody that was eligible could apply for them. So I did, and I was pretty tickled to death. I was going to go to Adak, Alaska. That was a listening post, spy on the Russians over there. And I had my orders in my hand, and my sea bag was packed, and I was ready to go. And they took them away from me, and gave me different orders. They said, "You're going to Vietnam." Oh. So then they sent me to California for 30 days for jungle training, which ended up being up in the hills, barren as all get out. I don't know how they figured that was jungle training, but that's what we did. And when they told us how to pack, and they said, bring your sea bags along with you, because we was going to go out for, a week at a time. Sea bags, it was 85 degrees. We bring our heavy coats, Well, we got up there, we found out the first night, when that sun went down, it got cold. Yeah, it got cold.
Norb,
Yes.
minus 20?
No. No, but it might have felt like it. But
Yeah.
It was down, I'd say in the high 30s. Yeah, and that's pretty changed when you're sweating.
Yeah.
885.
Big drastic
and-
range there.
Yeah. So we spend our evenings digging holes, and the guys would find tarantulas, would put them in, put two of them in a hole together, and they would fight.
Jeez. And then at some point, well, you got promoted to corporal, I think, right before you,
Yeah, I
Left
was
for Vietnam.
before, yeah.
and you boarded a ship, and I researched it later and found out it was the General William Weigel,
Yeah.
a troop carrier.
Yeah.
And you proceeded on across the Pacific, and did you stop anywhere? Did you guys some of them go to Guam or Philippines or
We stopped at Hawaii
Hawaii?
for 4 hours. So me and my buddies, we got to see the Arizona Museum. And that's about, we went to a couple bars. We didn't have any money though. But of course, you got to go to the bars, that was a habit, But yeah, then on to Vietnam then.
And how was that experience? I know we had talked about this a couple times when your ship got into Vietnam waters and where you landed at, and how that all transpired.
Well, I was sent over as a replacement, so I didn't go over as a unit. And there was just a few of us that were going to this one spot. So all we had with us was our sea bags, and that's, and then we unloaded off of our ship there and got on an old flat bottom and went up a river. And we were supposed to get to our post that day yet, but we ended up on a sandbar and we got stuck. So here we are sitting out there, and our minds are all wondering we're in enemy territory, and all we got's our sea bags, But they got us off, and we spent the night in an old, old, not a church, but just a chapel.
Like a missionary
a
or
missionary,
old missionary.
thank you. And we spent the night there sleeping on the old bare ground, and then the next day we went to our unit. It's just everybody separated, so each one of us was an individual. And I got in there and reported in, and they took a sea bag and threw it in a tent and brought me around and got rifle gear and everything and loaded up with ammunition and said, "You're the squad leader. Here's your 9 men." There was 10 of us. And an hour later, we was on a helicopter out in the bush.
Do you remember the area that you were at?
No.
I researched it.
You got it.
A lot of it.
You-
It was
you
a place
tell 'em.
called Chu Lai in South Vietnam with the 7th Marines.
Yes. I'd like to tell a story on you.
Love it. Love it.
He just mentioned that he researched me, and he found out a lot that I didn't know about what was going on over there where I was at. So he got this page on the internet that the Marine Corps keeps every year what the activity that the Marines did. In 1966, he got that year, and he was trying to find out my information. So he goes through there, and he goes through there, he goes through. And he tells me when we're interviewing this before, he says, "I finally found it on page around 200. So he said, I typed in and printed that off. He said, it printed 400 pages.
It
Am I
did.
right, Kim?
That's right.
Yeah.
That was a long afternoon.
And I got them all at my house. 400 pages printed on one side only.
Yep. And that's how we found out that Norb was in Company L, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, in the 3rd Marine Division. And that's where you started your time in Vietnam at Chu Lai.
Yes.
And so what happened with once you left the Chulai and headed out to the
Well,
jungle?
We never come back from the jungle. I was out there for 9 days, and every day we was tromping, and it wasn't me that was telling them where to go. They was telling me where to go, but me and my troops had to follow. But we was looking for weapon caches in these little villages, which didn't amount to much, just a hut or two, and we was looking for tunnel systems. But then on the last day I was there, they sent in a bunch of bombers, and they told us we was going to take a hill over there. So we sat one whole morning watching bomb that 500-pound bombs hitting that hill over there, and then all of a sudden they told us saddle up, and we was all in line, and we went in there and we found them. Yep, that's where I got wounded, got helicoptered out, and
So during that, it was called Operation Texas.
Yes.
So during that bombing and subsequent infantry operation, you were wounded there.
yes,
And a few of your squad members were as well.
yes, I lost 7 guys, yes.
And how did you get off the battlefield?
I hobbled off. There was a corpsman, a little guy, come over there and he put a tourniquet on me. He says, I can't give you any morphine because you got a tourniquet. I said, okay, let's get out of here. We had to get out of here. Shots were still hitting dirt around us. So I put my arm on his shoulder and went away, and we was heading for a big hedgerow. That's where our guys had grouped for a little bit of shelter. He says, I don't think I can get you over that hedgerow. I picked him up and threw him over, and then I followed him. Yes,
And then from there, you got thrown into a duster, as they call it, medevac helicopter, and
Yeah.
flown to an aid station,
yes, yes.
or I guess it'd be a 3rd Battalion Medical Aid Station,
Yeah.
where you received your triage for your
Yeah.
wounds. Is that where they discovered that you had been wounded in several different places? And
Yes, yes. Well, they brought me in a tent, and there was X-ray machines in there and everything. They X-ray me. First thing they do, though, they got big old scissors. They cut everything off of you, boots, pants, shirts, and they X-ray you then. And the guy asked me if I was hurt anywhere else, and I said, "Well, no, I didn't think so." He picked up my flak jacket they had taken off of me, and it was just shredded on the chest area. And so that made me turn a little pale. Yeah, it did, yeah.
And Norb, as I interject here, I think the positive is there's war and there's love. And you've got a great war and love story.
Do I?
Yes, you do. You want to share that?
I'd be glad to. I was in Okinawa then to recover, and the doctor told me one day that he's had bad news for me. I said, "Okay, doc, what is that?" He said, "We're going to send you home. Going to send you to the nearest naval hospital of your home, which is Great Lakes, because I was going to be longer than 30 days to heal." I said, okay. So I ended up in Great Lakes then, and it was like Don said here, when I got to Great Lakes, from the airport, we went on the bus and got out there, and there was, I suppose, 20 of us patients there, all in leaders, and it was just like MASH. Doctors come, they looked at your slip on your toe, and oh, you take this and I'll take this, and they just separated you that way. But anyhow, I got there and got good care there. And once I was able to get around from my hospital room, I was able to go down to the mess hall, chow hall, and have my meals rather than have them in the room. And I run into this core woman down there, core lady, and we ended up getting married. Yeah,
A beautiful rose.
yeah, you knew her. Yeah,
And then, so you two got married, and then you took up another duty station after you got out of the hospital.
Right.
Where was that at?
Albany, Georgia, Marine Corps Supply Center. There again, they said, well, we're going to release you from the hospital. You got any duty station the Marine Corps has you can go to, because I had over a year to do yet. I had 13 months. Well, I knew my friend Jim Clark was at Albany, Georgia. I said, send me down there with my buddy, and they did.
And so you and Jim, did you have your son when you were in Albany, Georgia, or was that back here?
He was born 10 days before my discharge. Yeah, right,
And-
Mike? There you go.
And Norb, do I have this right? Which, if I do, it's really an unbelievable story. You started with Jim, you had divergent paths in the military, and you rode home with Jim, right?
We
to
did.
end your
We did.
military service.
You did.
That's an incredible story right
Yes.
there. And you waited on Jim for a year, as you mentioned earlier,
That's right.
to get in.
That's right. And Mike, his brother out there, he didn't learn from us. He had to join too.
And one really I thought was a great story when we were talking and preparing to write all this, that sometime right before your enlistment was up in Albany, a truck pulled up
Yes.
and dumped off your sea bag that you had left in Chu Lai, Vietnam.
Well, I left too hurriedly, and I didn't have time to get it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had wrote that off. I honestly wrote it off and never gave it another thought. But just wasn't just too long from a discharge. They brought up in there. They brought my sea bag.
And funny, about a week ago, we cracked open Norb's sea bag that was in his attic, and one of the uniforms that he took to Vietnam is on that mannequin out front. And it was the only 6'3" mannequin we could find.
You thought they was going to be too short.
Did.
Well, if any of you, all of you have been to a writer talk before, we don't stay on the timeline very well, and we've crushed the timeline that we're supposed to stick to. But I think a perfect opportunity and segue, if you would love to know more about their stories, there's books for sale that are out there, and there's the next volume will be coming as well. So make certain, and if you haven't seen this book yet, the work that Kim and Diana have put into this, folks, I'm always proud to be from St. Mary's, but when we just continue to see people do things like this, it just elevates me to a point that I'm like, I am from St. Mary's. This is absolutely incredible. And so check that book out, buy that book, and we have all kinds of raffle prizes that we are going to take a look at. And Andy, if you want to get ready with the Franklin Eberly video, we have a unique World War II blanket, Air Force blanket, and 5 Christmas ornaments. Challenge coin case, coins for Army, Navy, Marines, the 390th Memorial Museum, Ronnie Blair, Herbert Linville, Charles Kettler, 2 2025 Veterans Writer Talk coin, Any golfers out there? And any Michelob Ultra fans? Mix the two together, and you've got a Michelob Ultra golf bag and case of Michelob Ultra. The books that we just talked about in the raffle, wine basket, homemade Ryder beer, and cigar caddy. 6 bottles of beer, glasses, and a rum barrel. Custom military plank from Ted Copeland, cigar basket, humidor cigar, lots of goodies, unique one-of-a-kind military blanket featuring shirts from all walks of military life, and a rum barrel. And then also, you got your freebie, but enhance your probability, the Yankee Doodle Desert Trip winner. When we draw that at the conclusion of this event, the winner will contact the Alumni Foundation to redeem. It'll be a reimbursement. We'll go through all of this. Airfare for 2, lodging for 3 nights, and admission for 2 adults, a 2-day pass to the Pima Air and Space Museum, which includes the 390th Memorial Museum in Tucson, Arizona. Somebody's going to have just an absolute amazing night beyond listening to these stories, because they're going to be the winner of this trip. And hopefully you get to meet Richard Bouchong, and we'll feature him in a little bit. Ken, before we cue the video, any last questions that you want to get?
I do want to say that you'll notice that when we were researching Frank Eberle's service, you'll see in this video how much the letters home meant to Frank, and how they helped bring together what happened to him in Europe.
Franklin Andrew Eberle was born on September 20th, 1922, the eldest son of Albert and Sylvia Eberle, and a 1940 graduate of St. Mary's Memorial High School. After high school, Frank married Elizabeth Betty Chappie. Frank enlisted in the Army on November 30th, 1942, during the height of World War II. After completing all of his training at Camp Van Dorn, Mississippi, Frank participated in the 3rd Louisiana Maneuvers. It was in Louisiana where Frank saw spiders of unimaginable size, along with snakes, insects, and armadillos. Frank was assigned to Company K of the 394th Infantry Regiment, part of the 99th Infantry Division. He quickly rose to the rank of sergeant. In early 1943, the couple welcomed a daughter into the world, Sharon Ann Eberle. Frank spent the next year in Texas with the 99th Division. In September 1944, the 99th received the call to war. The entire 99th Division departed from Camp Maxey, Texas, bound for the East Coast and the European theater. During the long train ride, Frank passed so close to St. Mary's that he could see the glow of lights in the sky from his hometown. The division crossed the Atlantic on board 3 transport ships and arrived in England the following month. After a brief stay, the division crossed the Channel and landed in Le Havre, France. The port facilities were so badly damaged by Allied bombing that the 394th Infantry Regiment and other elements of the 99th had to come ashore in landing crafts. The division left the French coast and headed for the front lines along the border between Belgium and Germany. Frank wrote his last letter home on November 13, 1944, on the way to the front lines.
Somewhere in Belgium. We are now in a Belgium farmhouse not too far away from it all. I sure hope you all are in the very best of health. I don't have time to write much now as we are moving quite a bit. Well, must close with love and all. Your son and brother, Frank.
The 99th Division was then deployed to the Ghost Front around Elsenborn, Belgium, near the German border. On November 14, 1944, Company K took up positions just across the German-Belgium border. The snow was 7 inches deep, and the weather was very cold with intermittent falling snow causing generally low visibility. Company K's mission was to maintain their defensive position and send out daily patrols to probe the German lines, which were approximately 1.5 miles away. Frank led such a patrol on November 19th with 2 other soldiers, Privates Fritz and Campbell. The following events were described in a letter written by a fellow soldier, Kenny Weeks, and sent to Frank's wife, Betty, in April 1945.
Dear Betty, I had hoped to be able to visit you so I shall do the next best thing and write you all I know about Frank. Believe me, you have our deepest sympathy, but I know that doesn't help things a lot. But if I can help you by telling you all I know.
The 3-man patrol crossed into Germany and into the Monschau forest, where at dawn they stopped at an outpost manned by Kenny Weeks' squad. Weeks shared a cup of coffee with Frank before the 3 of them continued the patrol. Several hours later, Campbell and Fritz returned to the outpost and reported that Frank had been killed. They reported that the patrol was stopped so Frank could check the map when he was struck down by German machine gun fire. The 2 squad members were unable to reach Frank due to the heavy German fire. It was impossible to re-enter the area for several days. A patrol led by Al Caruso reached Frank's body and retrieved the remains.
This is all for this time. Best of luck always. Sincerely, Kenny Weeks.
Staff Sergeant Franklin Eberly was the first casualty suffered by K Company, but he would not be the last. The Battle of the Bulge commenced on December 16th. Many soldiers from the regiment were killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. In order to accommodate all of the war dead, both Allied and German, a temporary burial site was established near Homburg, Belgium, known as Henri Chapelle Cemetery. It was here that the remains of Staff Sergeant Franklin Eberly were interned. By the end of World War II, Henri Chapelle would hold over 17,000 American graves. After the war, Paul Axe of St. Mary's visited Frank's grave in Belgium and noted that there was a nice white cross marking his grave. While at the cemetery, Paul Axe scooped up a small amount of Belgium soil from Frank's grave and brought it home for Frank's parents. In 1947, the remains of many of America's fallen soldiers were delivered to the port of Antwerp, Belgium, for repatriation to the United States. The streets of Antwerp were lined with over 30,000 Belgians who paid their respects to America's fallen, including Staff Sergeant Franklin A. Eberly. On December 20th, 1947, in St. Mary's, Ohio, the soil from Belgium was mixed with the soil at Frank's final resting place in the cemetery at Elm Grove. For his devotion to duty, leadership, courage, and sacrifice, the St. Mary's Memorial High School Alumni Foundation inducts Staff Sergeant Franklin A. Eberly into the St. Mary's Memorial High School Hall of Fame for military service to country.
Thank you, Franklin. Thank you, Don Martindale. Thank you, Norbricker. And thank you, Christy Wibbler, for sharing your newly found stories of your dad. Q&A will take place. Now go visit the raffle prizes, the restrooms, the concession, and we'll be back at it with Preston Keith and Justin Chisholm. We got a couple trees before we get back to the panel. And so I'm going to turn it over right now to Howie and Rhett and the video.
I'm just trying to be a father, raise a daughter and a son, be a lover to their mother, and everything to ever want. Up and at 'em bright and early, I'm on business from my head down to my boots. I don't do it for the money, there's bills that I can't pay. I don't do it for the glory, I just do it anyway. Providing for our futures, my responsibility. Yeah, I'm real good under pressure, being all that I can be. I can call in sick on Mondays when the weekend's been too strong. I just work straight through the holidays, sometimes all night long. You can bet that I stand ready when the wolf growls at the door. Hey, I'm solid, and I'm steady, and I'm true down to the core. And I will always do my duty, no matter what the price. And I've counted up the cost, I know the sacrifice. Oh, and I don't want to die for you, but if dying's asking me, and I'd bear that cross with honor, 'cause freedom don't come free. I'm an American soldier, an American. Beside my brothers and my sisters, I will proudly take a stand. When liberty's in jeopardy, I will always do what's right. I'm out here on the front line, sleep in peace tonight. American soldier, I'm an American soldier. Yeah, I'm an American soldier, an American. Beside my brothers and my sisters, I will proudly take a stand. When liberty's in jeopardy, I will always do what's right. I'm out here on the front line, sleep in peace tonight. American soldier, I'm an American, an American, an American soldier, an American, an American soldier.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Red Chisholm. And pleased to announce that in January, Red Chisholm will be an American soldier. And speaking of rolling, we've got all kinds of things in store for you. We've got one more thing to roll before we hear from Preston Keith and Justin Chisholm. Justin, the father of that almost American, he is an American soldier, but he heads for boot camp in January. Rhett does, and how fitting was that to sing, and great pictures that we have there. So let's get that I'm proud to be from St. Mary's moment going right now with the video of Laverne Pax.
Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God. This inscription is etched on the west panel at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington National Cemetery. Standing watch at the tomb 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is a sentinel or honor guard. It is considered the hardest and rarest of jobs in the Army, with a strict schedule and even stricter requirements for a soldier to be hand-picked to serve. One such soldier, Spec 4 Laverne E. Pax, a 1953 graduate of St. Mary's MHS, attained this honor and served as a sentinel for 18 months during 1957 to 1958. Laverne was born November 7, 1935, the 11th of 15 children to Edmund J. and Frances K. Meyer Pax. He graduated in 1953 and worked at Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. He enlisted in the Army on October 1, 1956, at the age of 20, and completed 16 weeks of basic training with the 9th Infantry Division at Fort Carson, Colorado. There, a colonel picked him out as a possible sentinel based on his physical attributes. He passed a series of rigorous interviews, met the demanding physical height and weight requirements, and was selected to walk the Army's top post at Fort Myer, Virginia, the residence of Army Chief of Staff Maxwell D. Taylor. This assignment was a 2-week trial to see if he was a good fit to guard the tomb. Many soldiers aspire to be a sentinel, yet there have been fewer than 700 who have been selected since the Army began guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier in 1926. To be a sentinel, a soldier must be between 5 feet 10 inches and 6 feet 4 inches tall, and their waist must be no more than 30 inches. In addition, the soldier must have an unblemished record. They undergo rigorous, extensive training, learning the steps and cadences of the walk, and the ceremony of changing of the guard. Throughout the training process, most soldiers wash out or fail, and they are sent back to their company. Only 20% of applicants are accepted. Specialist Laverne E. Pax passed these difficult, intense requirements. He stood 6 foot tall, weighed 185 pounds, and had a blemish-free service record. He was officially made a member of an elite unit known as the Old Guard, 1st Battle Group, 3rd Infantry assigned to Fort Myer, Virginia, in March 1957. He began his first assignment as a sentinel on April 2, 1957, working a rigorous 24-hour shift, standing guard 6 times over the course of 24 hours, followed by 2 days off. After serving 9 months as a sentinel at the tomb, Specialist Pax was awarded the second least awarded badge in the Army, the Tomb Guard Identification Badge. On Memorial Day 1958, Sentinel Pax became part of history, standing next to President Dwight D. Eisenhower and Vice President Richard M. Nixon and 200 Medal of Honor recipients at a dedication ceremony to World War II and Korean soldiers. PFC Pax was personally selected to serve as the Honor Guard out of the 12 soldiers in the Honor Guard unit. Pax stood guard as President Eisenhower placed a wreath on the 2 caskets, one representing the unknown soldier in World War II and one representing the unknown soldier in the Korean War. Pax's role is cemented in history as the last soldier to stand guard for the single unknown soldier from World War I, and the first sentinel to stand guard over all 3 unknown servicemen. Specialist Pax served 18 months as a sentinel, completing his last day of service on October 2, 1958. After being honorably discharged from the Army as a Spec 4, he returned home to St. Mary's and became an insurance agent with Nationwide Insurance Company in 1959. There, he and his wife, Shirley, raised 3 children, Renee, Dana, and Eric. In 2008, Pax was given another honor, to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldiers in 2 separate ceremonies to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 1958 interment of unknown soldiers from World War II and the Korean War. A 50-member delegation of his family and friends attended the wreath-laying ceremony. Laverne Pax passed away on May 7, 2022, at the age of 86. He was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery in Pataskala, Ohio. The Society of the Honor Guard, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, noted his passing, posting, "Rest in peace, brother. We have the watch." For his dedication to country and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and for being the last sentinel to stand watch over the World War I soldier, and being the first to watch over the World War II and Korean soldiers, the Alumni Foundation inducts Specialist 4 Laverne E. Pax into the Hall of Fame for military service to country.
How about that, Rough Rider fans? Laverne Pax. Well, Preston, Justin, the bar's been set high. You guys ready for it?
Well, let's go with Preston first. And we've just in the process of interviewing and getting photos and documents, et cetera. So I'll start with the same question that I do with everybody else. Why did you join the service, specifically the Navy?
Well, first, I want to say something about Kim. If you don't, the monument in the park and the soldiers that he was trying to get in contact for the unit to write a book previously, I was getting emails from this guy. I had no idea who he was. I need interviews, so I need to know this, I need to know that, and I'm just blowing his emails off and ignoring him. Like, I don't know who this guy is. So I took a shot one day and went and met him, and he wanted to know the service of the unit I served in and the local guard guys here that served. And we became really good friends, told him a lot of things I probably shouldn't have told him. I just want to thank him for what he's doing for the veterans in the community, so I appreciate that.
No problem.
And the other thing is, I know there are other veterans out here, because I see some of you, so thank you for your service. I appreciate all of you, so thanks. All right, well, why I joined the Navy specifically. Skip Bachman was my first mentor who I worshiped, and I had the thought that I was going to play football somewhere. Little did I know that I was not as good as my older brother. I found out really quick. And I had went on some recruiting trips. Long story short, those recruiters had called and said, we want him to come and walk, and look at the school. My mom goes, he ain't going, he's going in the military, which I didn't even know I was going to do. So two friends of mine, Dan Kirby and Todd Ashball, went to the MEPS in Lima, was going to all join in the buddy program. Dan Kirby's mom, who happened to be a teacher, told him, no, you're not. And he goes, guys, I can't go. So Todd Ashball and I were sworn that we would go join a branch together. I wasn't smart enough to get in the Air Force. They had a long list, a long wait. The Marine guy scared me to death, just so you know, Don. It scared me. So
It's a good thing you're set in between two.
Yeah. So they scared me. So Todd said, let's just go to the Navy. I said, okay. Did the delayed entry program. I did not go with Todd. I made the mistake of saying, I'm not ready to go. Todd left. I actually had my recruiter tell the sheriff that tried to intimidate me and scare me to join. Like, you're going to go to jail if you don't go. I rolled the dice and said, they're not going to knock on my door. My mom won't let them. They did not knock on the door. It was a scare tactic that did not work. I got lucky. But I joined anyway. Went to Great Lakes, rode a bus from Lima, Ohio to Chicago, Illinois. Got off that bus, and reality hit me in the face. Small town kid, scared to death. Went through Navy boot camp there in Great Lakes. You know, the physical part was pretty easy too. I was in pretty good shape. The mental part was something I had to adjust to. I told Kim the story that I wasn't going to tell, but I'll tell it because it's kind of funny. Getting ready to graduate, got into an argument in boot camp at the chow line. You're getting ready to graduate, you get these white leggings. Hey, you're getting ready to graduate, go home. You're allowed to talk in the chow line if you have these little white leggings on. So we're talking. We're not allowed to talk for 6 to 8 weeks. So this is a week we're allowed to talk. Was talking with the guys in the chow hall. The guy clicking our numbers to go eat says you told us to be quiet. Good friend of mine named Quentin King from the South Side of Chicago said we're allowed to talk. They got in an argument, and then we started all fighting. I got set back 2 weeks for a fight. Told my mom I failed a test. And said, Mom, I failed a test. I'm not graduating when I'm supposed to graduate. Never told her the truth, till about 15 years later. And she's still upset at me about it. Graduated from Great Lakes, had a school to go to. When they were giving our little orders out, I was going to go to a school, and they said, who wants to go to Italy? I'll go. Little did I know, when I signed that order, I lost the school. So the naive 18-year-old I was said, when do I go to school? Well, you don't. You're going straight to the fleet. You're going straight overseas. I said, oh, okay. And I went over what was called an undesignated seaman. So we just painted the ship, drove the ship, did all that stuff. Spent 4 years on the USS Belknap.
What kind of ship was that?
It's a guided missile cruiser. And it was a Sixth Fleet flagship, which means we had an admiral on board, which we had also a crew of Marines, and they guarded the admiral. I stayed there for 4 years, med cruises, France, Italy, Spain, Israel, Turkey, seen a lot of countries, a lot of stuff before I was probably 20, 22 years old. Left there, got stationed in Pax River, Maryland, with test pilot school as a logistician. Had my daughter there, got out, came back home, worked here in town for a while, realized I missed serving, and didn't know anything about the Guard, nothing about the National Guard. So if he's out there, Don Henline was my recruiter, if anyone knows who Don Henline is.
Yep.
Don Henline, who I thought was telling me a bunch of lies and stories about it, I didn't want to, I'm like, I don't believe you. I wanted to serve still. Told me, come up, talk to the commander. I said, I'm not doing this, you guys don't do anything. And I signed up the next day. Did a try-1 year here in St. Mary's. Did the 2 weekends a month, or weekend a month, 2 weeks a year for 2 or 3 years. Met good friends of mine, Joe Byers, who's out there. Got hired as which is an active guard reserve, which is an active duty post, or position, if you will, here in St. Mary's. 9/11 hit. Remember when 9/11, I was sitting in the armory here in St. Mary's and realized, that must be serious. Had Vietnam era veterans knocking on the armory door wanting to join the service, if you can believe that. I would let them come in and hang out at that armory and make sure they felt that they would give back. They wanted to go to war. And I was really taken back by that because I had a few soldiers in that unit did not want to go, but I had Vietnam era veterans knock on that door saying, I'll go. So 9/11 happened, and if you all remember, we have the Goodfellas here in town, right? That always happened in the armory. After 9/11, every armory in the state of Ohio was locked down. I had security at this armory. guys living at the armory, and it was locked. You couldn't get in. We had the local police checking. So Christmas comes around, and I have to go tell Mr. Noble that he's not allowed to have Goodfellows at the armory anymore. If you never met that man, he was probably the most intimidating man I've ever met.
You talking to Ed Noble by
Yes,
chance?
sir. Yes. So I was tasked to go walk across the street and tell him that the Goodfellows is not happening in the armory. 2 days later, I got a phone call from the two-star general's office saying, "Preston, yes, you are." And Goodfellows went on, and it was the only armory in the state of Ohio after 9/11 that was open for Christmas.
That's a
The only
priceless
one.
story.
And every time I saw that man, I'm like, okay, whatever you want. So trained up went to Iraq in 2004. Served with some great guys. I'm not sure the community knows the citizen soldier stories of guys that joined for college and got sent to war. Those guys mean a lot to me. In 2004, I took a bunch of kids that were planning just to go to college, and they had to go to war. And I am grateful for the community that they stood by that unit when we deployed. And this unit, if no one knows, has been deployed, at one time was deployed more than any unit in the state of Ohio, National Guard unit. That's how good these guys were. And those are citizen soldiers. These are not active duty guys. These are guys that are joining for college or insurance for their families. And they went to war. So came back, took another position in a Joint Force Headquarters in the operations section, did a bunch of staff work, Homeland Security, defense stuff. Served with a lot of great guys. Came back home here. My last 3 years as the first sergeant of this unit, and I started my career here, and I wanted to end it here. And my last day of wearing a uniform was in that building. And that building means a lot to a lot of guys in this town that's served, especially the citizen soldiers. They don't get it nearly enough credit. But I know they're out there. They knew who they are. But yeah, that was it. That was it. 2016, I retired, and I continue to serve and try to take care of vets. So any of you guys out there that need any help, come and see me.
If you want to tell them where you work at now.
Well, I shouldn't, but I will. But I work for the Veteran Service Office for All-Glaze County. What I will tell you is what our job is to take care of veterans. So, and I'm going to leave it at that. Whatever problem or whatever thing they need, we're going to help them. I'm not speaking for the director who I work for, but as a veteran service officer and my battle buddies out there in the crowd, they'll tell you the same thing. A vet, a spouse of a veteran, you send them to our office. We'll find a way to take care of them, whatever they need. So that's it. That's all I got.
And that was the easiest interview I've ever done. I would ask one thing
Sure.
that Norm had talked about is what on the USS Belknap, what kind of where did you sleep at? Did they have piled 9 high?
When I got there, we hot racked it too. So when I got there, I slept right across from the TV area. So it was on a bunch of lockers. And if guys are coming down and they're going to watch, and they want to watch TV, I'm trying to sleep. They didn't care. So there's a berthing area of 35 guys. There's 46 of you sleeping down there. So if a guy's on watch, you're sleeping in his bunk. Or you're sleeping on top of lockers, or you're, anywhere.
Did you ever get seasick?
I have gotten seasick. I have had to tie myself to my bunk, yes. One I remember specifically, I was actually the helmsman where you do the driving of the ship, and it was really rough, and the nose of the ship went under and came up, and there was a dolphin came on the front of the ship. And I'm like, what? We went that, but the dolphin's flopping on the front of the ship and coming off. Yeah, the leaning sideways, the tying yourself to the bunk is a real deal. The throwing up in your rack is a real deal. And that's when I really wanted to come home.
And that's why I went in the Army.
Kim, you just mentioned that was the easiest interview you've ever done. True story. The very first writer talk right here on this stage just got done with Galen Cisco, who, if you were here, you'll remember just one more story. Galen set us on pace for never being on time with writer talk ever. So the very next writer to come up and talk, Floyd Keith. I spoke and said, Floyd, you've been speaking for 13 minutes. I haven't asked the first question. Maybe there's something.
It might be genetic.
Yeah. But great.
So if you have a question, I apologize.
Yeah, great story, and thanks for sharing. And Preston, obviously, your love for helping veterans oozes out, and I have the pleasure of working across the hall from Preston and Rob and Big Joe, and we hear it. We've got three of the best in the whole office of helping veterans in the state of Ohio. So just, again, more accolades. We live in a pretty darn great place.
And with that, from the easiest interview I've ever done to the funniest I've ever done. If anybody knows Justin Chisholm, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Justin is a Army veteran of the 101st Airborne Division, a very storied Army division. And I guess one question, you're a 1996 or 1996 and a half graduate of St. Mary's?
96 and a half, yeah.
So tell us the same question. What made you go into the Army, or what made you join the service?
I'd always had a love to hear military stories and war movies growing up, playing guns around the neighborhood with my brothers and neighbors and stuff. Just something I was always interested in, and and then I probably didn't make the best choices into my high school. Right out of high school, liked to party a little bit and carry on, and I just wasn't who I wanted to be. So I started talking to my older brother. He was kind of in the same boat that I was in. And, we were talking about maybe joining the buddy system together, and before we got back to each other, I went to him. I said, "Hey, you should really." I'd already joined. I said, "Hey, you should really talk to the Army." And he's like, "You should really talk to the Marines." And yeah, I said, "I already joined." He's like, "I did too." So yeah, he left the day he was graduating boot camps. The day I left for basic.
And you joined the Army as 11 Bravo infantryman of all things.
I had no idea I did that. This is a true story. I went to the recruiter, and he's like, what are you interested in? And I said, well, what do you got? And this guy, I don't know if he had a long day or what, flips his pencil in the air. He's like, son, there's 200 and some odd jobs, United States Army. And I'm like, well, I don't know any of them. And he goes, you want to work indoors or outdoors? I was like, outdoors. He's like, you want to jump out of helicopters? I'm like, heck yeah. He goes, 11 X-ray out the door, and and I get back and start talking to my friends. They're like, well, what are you going to do in the Army? I'm like, jump out of helicopters. And it wasn't until we got on that bus down this. I am putting myself out there right now to show you how naive I was. We pull up in front of Fort Benning, Georgia, and it says home of the infantry, and I'm like, man, there's infantry dudes here. and the guys in the van are like, dude, what do you think you are? And I'm like, I'm jumping out of helicopters. And they're like, yeah, into a combat zone. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And it hit me.
So you were at the beginning, they call it the OSUIT program, One Station Unit Training, and I think you went through OSUIT, I believe. You were one of the first.
I did, yep.
And what was that experience like?
At first, you know, when I first got to basic, you don't know anybody. So you left everything you've ever known. You don't have any friends. So it's a lonely road to begin with. Then you'll start to make friends, and then there's people from all aspects of the country coming in. And one thing in basic, they were like, where are you from? And I said, St. Mary's. They were like, where's that? And I said, in Ohio. What's it near? I was like, well, it's about an hour north of Dayton. We'll call you Dayton. I'm like, no, that's not where I'm from. But everybody had a big city and that's how they would refer to each other. But I was like, you can call me St. Mary's if you want, or you can just call me Chisholm. That is my name, But yeah, in basic, you do your basic training, and then you keep the same drill sergeants for AIT, so you don't get shipped out anywhere. So one weekend we wake up and they're like, oh, congratulations, you passed basic. AIT starts today. Do push-ups. You know, so it was, I mean, nothing really changed on what we were doing day to day.
And then you got close to the very end of your basic training or your OSUIT class and had a little setback.
I did, yeah. In '99, there was a considerable amount of people that joined because they had a decent signing bonus back then. And so when I got down to my 30th AG down there at Benning, normally you spend a couple weeks, they give you your uniforms and everything, and then you ship out to your basic. I sat there for about a month waiting, and it was just eating every day and just doing nothing. There was drills that walked around, they wouldn't yell at you. It was really weird, but you did it for a whole month, so it was like it went on and on. So then when we got there, normally in week 2, you do basic rifle marksmanship, which is something you have to graduate. And we had skipped that, went to something else. So it was week 13. I started having a pain in my leg, and I woke up one morning, and I just could not put any weight down on my leg. So I went to my senior drill, and I was like, Drill Sergeant, I can't put any weight down on my leg. And he just does the whole, oh, is he hurt? So I'm like, yeah, he is hurt. He cannot feel his leg. And he's like, go fall in. We're going on a run. I was like, okay. So it was the first run I fell out of, and something happened. I went down, and then they found that I had a fracture in my shin and sent me home. And I came home for 20-some days, then went back, sat in the bay that I was in with all my friends. They're all now gone. Slept on a mattress. You guys can be like, oh. It was horrible, but yeah, I slept on a mattress, and then they kicked me one day, and they're like, hey, you're restarting, and in my mind, I'm going to week 13, and I get there, and all these guys have got completely bald heads, their eyes are wide open, I'm looking around, you know, and I'm carrying everything I got, my greens and everything in, and they're just like, where did you get those? I'm like, my greens? You guys haven't got greens yet? What week is this? They're like, day 2. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I had to start over and do it all over again. So that was, yeah, not what I planned on doing, but we got her done.
And I think you made a friend in there, a particular drill sergeant, if I
did,
recall
yeah.
our story.
He wasn't even my drill sergeant, but this guy did not like me for some reason, and he had this funny lisp. And when he yelled, you know, maybe that's why I laughed maybe the first time, but yeah, he would follow me around and just smoke me up, and he followed me. I did go to sit call one morning. He had to walk down to the sit call building, stand in line. Here he pulls up. He had a Mustang 5.0. I'll never forget it. And he pulls up, and he's like, hey, and called me some names I won't say. But and like me and everybody else in line is looking at him, starts roasting his tires off and pulls away. And I'm just like, and the other guys were like, who was that? I'm like, it was my drill sergeant. I was like, but really, he's not even my drill sergeant. He just, but yeah, it was one of my memories. And then to add on to that, once I graduated, I go to Fort Campbell. I get into my unit. They're in the field when I got there. So first morning, I go link up with these guys in the field, and we're eating T-Rats in the morning. And like the sun was just coming up, and here comes this guy walking at me, and I just dropped my stuff, and I'm like, there's no way it was Drill Sergeant Fallbush, and I'm just like, he's walking right at me, and I'm like, there's no way he's here. And then I tapped the guy next to me, I'm like, who is that? That's Sergeant Fallbush. And I'm like, no way. And then come to find out, like, he's like, hey, Sergeant Fallbush, this guy knows you. And he walks up and he's like, how do you know me? With no lisp or anything, and he had a twin brother that was in this unit. Yeah, that was bad, but he was actually a really good guy. He'd come to watch football with me on Sundays.
So after that, you joined 2nd Platoon, 187th Infantry Regiment. Well, what company were you in?
I was in Bravo Company.
Bravo Company.
3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry Regiment.
In the 101st Airborne Division.
Correct. Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
And so then you guys, the first thing that happened was you guys went to the field for field training, as all infantry does.
Yep.
And another unfortunate experience happened.
Yeah. So I told you I was eating T-Rats that next morning. Well, that day of training, we were going through some different drills. We had a gun team across this field set up in this wood line, and they were hammering out the objective, whatever they were shooting at. And my job was to direct them back to us once they picked up and moved. Well, I knelt down, and I'm ready to direct them. As soon as they stop firing, I'm going to direct them over to us. And then I just feel this hammer, and I look down, and I knelt down on some Hornets, and they're hitting me up. And so I just pick up and I move and I sit back down, and I was like, man, I started feeling a little odd. And then after anything you do in the military, you always do what they call an after-action review or a debrief. So we're debriefing the thing. And I don't know anybody. And my team leader is a guy from the islands. He had a really crazy accent. Wilson was his name. But I said, I can't breathe. And he's like, oh, yeah. It's very taxing. And, he's saying all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I can't breathe. And I was like, can I take my blouse off? And he's like, yeah. Well, hold on. He was like, oh, the new guy can't breathe. And I'm like, no. So then our CEO was like, are you having problems, Private? And I'm just like, I am. I can't breathe, sir. And he's like, well, yeah, roll your sleeves up. So I rolled my sleeves up, and there was some stuff going on my arms. And they just found out I was allergic to bees at that point. So I get rushed into the medical center, and they put me on quarters. And I don't know what they did to me. They were putting needles in me and whatnot. And I got back to my room, which I hadn't even got yet. And I woke up, and some guy standing over top me, and I'm like, hi. And he goes, hey, I'm your new roommate, Tiernan. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I've never seen him, but you just slept for a full day. And I'm like, I don't even know where I'm at, dude.
So then you spent the next year and a half as a saw gunner in an infantry squad.
Best job in the infantry right there.
And you were able to graduate from Air Assault School at some point.
Uh-huh.
And then you got another unique experience of traveling to England for training. And what was that about?
I did, yeah. We did an exchange where we sent a platoon of us over there, and then a platoon of them stayed in our barracks. So we got to go over there. We carried their weapons, trained with them, company level, not platoon, but we ended up training with these guys. The guys that were airborne qualified in my unit, about half my platoon had gotten airborne when they got out of basic. They got to jump over there, got their forward and jump wings. Did some of the craziest training I'd done in the military was over there in England. And then we fought them in their own mount site, and we beat them up pretty good.
And then we segue into where were you guys at on September 11th?
September 11th, we had just finished PT, and we got about an hour to an hour and a half in between PT and first formation to square away your uniforms and get your boots squared away and stuff. So that's what I was doing. I was ironing my BDUs at the time, and then somebody started mentioning that somebody flew a plane in the building. My friend next door is the only one that had a TV in the barracks. There was one in the day room. So eventually the whole platoon is in this room, and then the second plane's hit, and then it just went from everybody's it was complete silence, like eerie silence, to one guy, mom worked in the towers. So the first sergeant to see, they come grab him, and they took him away. And I think they were trying to make contact to see if she was fine, and then it was just everybody was like, we were ready to do whatever we had to do.
So being the 101st Airborne is, one of the Army's premier units. You found yourself in Afghanistan a short time after that.
About 5 months later, we touched down in Afghanistan. We were there, I think, somewhere like 6 to 7 months. A lot of stuff in Afghanistan was like humanitarian stuff. We did some missions, but we were doing a lot of the setup because no one was there yet. So we were building a lot of the guard towers and setting up a lot of the floors in Tent City and trying to make an actual base because there wasn't a whole lot there at the time. And then periodically we do missions and whatnot.
Then was it your regiment that seized the airport in Kandahar, or was that?
No, that was SF units. We did the Saddam International Airport in Baghdad.
And so how long was the mission in Afghanistan?
6 or 7 months. I got promoted while I was over there to sergeant. So I had to attend a primary leadership development course within 6 months, or my lateral promotion would be taken back and I would be demoted back down to corporal. So when I got back, they signed me up for a 30-day lockdown school at Fort Campbell. I went to that. I think it was about a month and a half after I got back, I went into PLDC. Then at the end of PLDC is when they asked if any Rakkasans were in the room. It was me and one other guy from First Bat, and we walk up there and they said, you guys got to get back to your units. You guys got orders. I was like, orders for Iraq. And I was like, goodness. So I said, I do get to graduate, right? And they're like, oh, you guys are good. You guys are good. You can.
So you went right from Afghanistan to NCO Academy and then deployed to Iraq.
Yeah, not right away. I wanted to say something about what Mr. Ricker said. And first of all, Mr. Ricker, I worked with your son Mike at CTEX. He's a great dude. But you were saying about the training you went to before they sent you over there. It was the same concept. Like we were going to, like Afghanistan was more mountainous, but Iraq, is known as more of a desert. And so we did some training down in the swamps in Louisiana. And every one of us was like, I don't understand what's going on here. But the same thing you said there, the same thing about the weather from day to night. Once we got over there, it was insane. Dropping 40 to 50 degrees from day to night I'd never seen anything like that. But yeah, we landed in Iraq and then, Kuwait. We staged in Kuwait first. Kuwait was a few weeks. We did some training exercises. There was a lot of missile or Scud alerts that we'd have to run 500 yards out we had holes dug in. And again, I'll just lay it out there. I did some dumb stuff, and one was not clean my pro mask on a daily basis like I did my weapon, because I ran all the way out there, and then you're supposed to be donning your mask. And I put that on and went to clear it, and it was just full of sand. And I'm like, I can't put that on. So here I am in my hole like that. And my squad leader's like, Chisholm. He was from the South. That's my best Southern accent. But he's like, man, put your mask on. I'm like, it ain't gonna work, Sarge. It ain't gonna work. I said, if I go down, you know that this is real. But but we staged there for a couple weeks, and then we flew in ahead of the GAC. We came in from the south, and I think the Marines were coming in from the east or west, but we would fly in Black Hawks 50 to 100 miles in front of the GAC, and we'd get out and set up security checkpoints for refueling and stuff like that. Once they got up close and these guys were set up, we'd get back on the birds, we'd fly another 50, 100 miles, get out, set up security, and then finally they threw us off the birds, put us on trucks, and the last 24 hours was riding trucks up to Baghdad.
So that was a trip up Highway 8 with the 101st Airborne.
Yeah.
What kind of reception did you get from the Iraqis, the civilian?
To this point, or throughout the
Overall.
Overall, I made some really good friends over there that were Iraqi civilians. We did one mission on the other side from where we were at. We were going in after this target, and my job there wasn't to go in, and that's always the fun stuff. But so I was on perimeter there, and this lady was bringing her trash out or something, running something out, and she's like, "What are you guys doing?" I mean, in perfect English, and I look at her and I'm like, you speak English? She's like, I'm from Chicago. What? She's like, yeah, my husband's, he's Iraqi. He's stuck in Chicago right now. Obviously, there's no planes coming in and out. And she's like, you should get this dude. He's a bad guy. And I'm like, we're trying. But yeah, that was odd. But yeah, then up north on the Syrian border, some of the farmers, you know, the stories they were telling me about Saddam, you know, would, in some of these around here, they had enough land around here, you know, there's good-sized farms. And he said, you know, Saddam will take enough to let us feed our family, and the rest he takes. And if you don't give, then stuff happens. So some good people. There's some good people over there.
One thing that happened during your tour in Iraq was you see on TV that you'll see in some of those Arab countries that they celebrate by firing their AK-47s straight up in the air, and what goes up must come down. And I think one of your squad members was struck in the foot with a falling bullet.
Yeah, we had been dropping pamphlets out of the air. We'd gotten over there's mosques all over, you know, and they play their music where they get down and pray. We took over those mosques and we're, you know, telling everybody, hey, if you got weapons, turn them into the American compounds. And we were getting weapons in, but we were also, you know, searching houses and stuff as we went. But the night, there was no electricity, you know, so we're doing patrols at night. And if anybody's ever had the nods on, unless there's any sort of loom, they are pointless. So we're really just walking the streets of Baghdad at night in the dark. Dogs were attacking us. You could hear people whispering, and it's like, I bring up, I'm like, hey, Sarge, you know, are these worth walking? He's like, you do as you're told. Let's go, you know. But, you know, in my mind, I'm like, this makes zero sense. But, yeah, once the electricity came back on, we found out exactly how many guns were around us, because it was like the wild. Everybody was shooting in the air. You know, we're crawling over, getting our vests on and stuff, and eventually you look out and it just looks like a fireworks display. And so we're sitting there, and some guys are lighting up some smokes or whatnot, and about 4 guys down, my buddy Andy, he took a round, come right down into his boot. So we're like, all right, we should probably not be sitting out here. But infantry guys are not the smartest people in the world, though.
So you spent your tour, and just by the way, there's a lot more to all this than what Justin is telling us right now, and you can read it all in this first volume here. After the 101st Airborne did your job in securing neighborhoods in Iraq, you moved up towards the Syrian border. And what was that about?
Yep, we we flew up there, but we set up a compound up there and was doing border patrols on 8 different villages. We also were training Iraqis to take over border security, and we were putting them through like a little 2-week basic training. And then there was probably 10 of them that just graduated, and we'd given them uniforms and weapons to take over so we could eventually start moving back down south. And I don't know, I'm sure they were ordered to do it, but they turned on us. So they were dispatched very quickly, but it was just something, you know, because you almost get to know these guys in that 2-week. They don't speak a lick of English, you know, so you're going through translators, but some of them, you know, you would almost consider, you know, friends for what they were doing and trying to do, but and then we would patrol the villages, and then that's where I left from. But that was also the spot Mr. Ricker was also talking about. We had a camel spider, and I forget his name. I want to say the guy that owned it and he named it Floyd. But Floyd, we pitted that thing against scorpions, snakes, a hornet like that we put in a bottle. Floyd beat them all. Well, then people started hearing about Floyd. So other guys from other units were bringing their spiders in, and it was like a little gambling ring going on. And Floyd never lost a fight. I don't know if he lost after I left, but the truck pulled up the day I was up there, and this kid gets out, and he's like, I'm looking for Chisholm. I said, that's me. And I'd went over my enlistment. They had stop-lossed me at the end of it, so which means I had to just stay until the Army's done with me. But then they show up out of the blue, and he's like, oh, you're out, you're done. And you know, going from being the lowest private in the unit to, luckily, as an E4, I didn't have to go to Korea or anything. I stayed there. A lot of my friends got shipped out other places, and I stayed at Campbell the whole time. And, you know, I was like third or fourth highest in tenure at that point, you know. So I seen a lot of people come and go, and it was hard. I didn't want to leave my guys. I was you know, now a fire team leader, and but you know, they all sat me down, talked to me. I cried like a baby getting on that truck and leaving, and then my buddy from Arkansas jumps in the truck a few miles down the road, and so we got to ride home together, and then that's where they were trying to get us to re-enlist. Every time you stop, some senior NCO would stop me like, we need good NCOs in the Army and this and that, and Jimmy Wayne be like, man, Chisholm, follow my lead. And I'm like, so we'd walk in there, you know, there'd be a sergeant major in there, and he'd be like, Sergeant Freeman, what are your plans to get out? And he's like, I'm just going to be a hippie photographer, you know, and I'm looking at him, and the sergeant major's like, what's that? He's like, just smoke a bunch of weed and take pictures. And I'm like, he's like, you can leave. He's like, Sergeant Chisholm, you going to be a hippie? And I was like, no, not at all. I said, I want to get into law enforcement. Oh, okay, yeah, we can get you into this and that. And then I'd come out 50 minutes later after talking to him, and Jimmy's like, man, you should have just followed my lead. And I'm like, I am not telling a sergeant major anything like that. So, yeah, I got to travel back to the States with Jimmy.
And then eventually you got out of the Army.
Eventually,
Got
I
your
got
separation.
Yep, I got out of the Army, and you know, another thing that was said was the letters. I still have boxes of letters I carried with me. You know, seeing letters my mom wrote in cursive. You know, that was one of the letters I got. My mom was. I knew it was from my mom. It's just something I can't. You know, I've cleaned out a lot of my stuff, and those letters I just can't let go of anybody that wrote me. I carried those letters everywhere I went.
I'll get those someday. Well,
Justin, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Ohioan General William Tecumseh Sherman from the Civil War, he just said, war is hell. Andy? Not exactly what I pictured was William Tecumseh Sherman saying war is hell.
Yeah. No, it does look like I'm enjoying myself. That's the day we had just cleared the Saddam International Airport, and we were going to hit the Special Republican Building 2 days later.
We were just talking about that story not too long ago and how math is important. And you were taking some fire, and you didn't know where it was coming from, and so maybe somebody's math was inaccurate.
Yeah.
Why don't you convey that one?
I did not get my EIB, which is your Expert Infantry Badge, and that's the covenant. As an infantryman, you get that, and that they put you through a lot of tests to get that badge, and I did not get it. And this is one reason I didn't, was my radio communication. I could not remember anything to say on that radio. So, but we were on top of this schoolhouse about 6 blocks from the Republican headquarters building there in Baghdad, and they were prepping it all night, prepping it with 125 mortars, because we're going to go in the next day. And there was they were doing it all night long. Well, it was my turn to sit on the roof and pull guard, had the radio down. Well, then these rounds start falling short, you know, and they're coming back towards us. And there's 6 blocks in between where we are and this, but I'm like, well, they're coming. And I'm looking at my buddy, and I'm like, who the hell's firing those? He goes, I don't know. And I'm like, I don't even know who to talk to. So I grabbed the radio. I'm like, hey, whoever's firing those things, you're not on. And then they stopped. And then they started firing. And then I started remembering a little bit. I'm like, add 200, add 200, add 200, fire for effect. You know, then it started to hit me. And then they were back on target again. But yeah, I had no idea who was firing or what the hell to say on that thing. So, yeah.
So as Ken mentioned, and didn't disappoint, this may be the funniest interview, but I want to ratchet it back just a tad, Justin. Your oldest just gave an amazing rendition of American Soldier.
Yeah.
Getting ready to follow in your footsteps. A, what does that mean, to follow in your footsteps? And B, have you, will you, or no way give him guidance and advice as to what he's about to embark upon?
No, I'll help him however I can. I'm very proud of all my children. That's the path he wanted to take. I know it's a little harder for my wife to chew, him going into the military. The only thing that I asked him was that don't join the infantry.
Don't jump out of helicopters.
Don't, yeah. Let me go with you so I can tell you exactly what they're talking about here. But no, I'm excited for him. I think it was a life-changing experience for me. I met, some of my friends. We still get together, about 12 or 15 of us, every 4 years, somewhere around the United States. Arkansas, Iowa. We went around, and we still get together every few years, and we tell the same stories. And going through something like that, those guys, I can't and will never forget them. And what you all did here on stage, and what your father did, it's just that stuff drives me. That's just amazing. So thank you all for what you did.
Kim, you want to do a little Q&A real quick, or you got a few more questions for Chiz?
No, I think we're good.
All right, we're gonna do a little bit of Q&A. So we'll bring the house lights up, and if you have a question for Christy about her father, Ralph Denning, serving in World War II, Norb in Vietnam, Preston, Global War on Terror, and thanks for reminding us about the citizen soldier, Preston. Quirk, your time in Korea. Justin, Global War on Terror. Just raise your hand, and hopefully we get a handful of good Q&A for these folks here.
Justin, you said that you went to Europe for training with the English. You said you fought them. Was that like with BB guns or?
No, just Miles gear. It's a laser, kind of form a laser tag. But the best part was it was in their mount site where they know every little nook and cranny.
And you beat them.
Oh, we beat the hell out of them. Yeah, it wasn't a fair fight.
Thank you.
Nobody. But after you're over there and you do what you do for us, like coming back, how much of adjustment is it to come back to civilian life? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
Quirk, you remember that?
What was that?
Like once you're over there and you do for us what you do, I mean you're programmed. Like coming back, is it a big change?
No. Well, no, it wasn't. Not for me, anyway.
So
I guess.
Here's the difference. This right here is way different. Am I lying?
No, not at all.
This right here, I'm not speaking for Justin, but they had it a hell of a lot harder than we did. I feel. And I see that generation on a weekly basis. And, the trauma and the stuff that all of veterans go through. Yeah. And it's real. I mean, it's real. For him to say, no, it's no big deal, that's a straight gangster right there. I'm just being straight with you. That's straight G right there. And I've seen and done a lot of stuff, but this, God love him.
Can I speak?
Yes, sir.
When I come back to the States at Great Lakes, Illinois, I was there for a few months, but the servicemen coming back all have horror stories about being treated bad, being baby killers and what have you. My experience was, I was near Chicago. There was these clubs, nightclubs, that would come in and offer whoever was able to go for a night out. And we got treated so well. So it wasn't all bad reception. A lot of it was good.
Norb, when you came back, were you able to find employment quickly? Because that was one of the reasons that you left.
I was. When I left Albany, Georgia, I had a new baby and a pretty new wife. Didn't have a place to go, didn't know where I was going to go. And we got an apartment, and I told my wife, I says, I'm going to get a job, and I won't be home until I have one. And I was home that evening. And the next day, I started at Minster Machine.
And how long did you work there?
About 6 months.
Didn't see that one coming.
Well, I was living in St. Mary's, and I had to drive to Minster, and I got an offer to work at Goodyear. So I went to Goodyear, and I was there for 33 and a half years.
Awesome. Awesome. Who else has a question here? There we go.
All right. My question for you guys is, as you serve for all of us, how can us as a community serve all of you? Just your own perspective on what we can do for you.
I'll answer that. I went on the honor flight from Dayton, and it was the most humbling thing I believe I had. They took us to D.C. and treated us like kings. We toured the city in the bus from one point to another, and we had police escorts. We didn't stop for nothing. They screamed through there from one place to another, and we were treated like royalty.
Yeah, there's also, last year I got to do, the Mercer County Pheasants Forever do a veteran hunt, and you go over there, and I've never hunted pheasant, and they take you out, and they got the dogs that come up and, stop and stare, and then the birds fly, and then all of us are just like, mowing them down. But that's actually coming up. If there's any veterans in the crowd that have never done it, I take advantage of it. They treat you to a meal, and then they take you back, and they got bird cleaning stations that they show you how to clean them, and they let you take them home. It's kind of a neat event. I think that's coming up in the middle of December. Stuff like that is great.
I always tell I told my oldest daughter, just to be a good American. I mean, I think as a veteran, there's all of us up here, selfless service. I think that's one of the reasons that we all served. And, I'm a patriot. I would give my life for this country again, over and over. It wouldn't matter. If they could take me now, I'd go. But just good Americans, I feel that, I would do it for everyone that's home, and the reward is doing it for great people, and that's you guys. So that's how I feel about it.
This question is for Kimmer, my dad.
There you go.
Excellent job, by the way, but why did you join the military?
I did it because I'd always been interested in it, and it was just intriguing, and I didn't want to work at the furniture store any longer. And I originally went in the infantry. I had a contract to go to the 9th Infantry in Fort Lewis, Washington, and when I got to MEPS, they changed my orders, and I ended up in going to the cavalry instead, which was worked out.
Have you jumping out of tanks?
Yep.
Okay. Just to go back a little bit to what Preston said, your dealings with veterans and people, it's good. I think he speaks for all of us. Just be good Americans and appreciate, what we've done regardless of age, et cetera. So Preston did it very well, said it for all of us, I feel.
Any last questions for Q&A? Yep.
My question for all of you is, what made you choose, what force you wanted to go into?
I can tell you I'm with Kim. I don't do water. And I don't care for heights, so.
It was the closest door at MEPS, is what it was.
Yeah.
That's what I tell everyone.
Yeah.
Did any of you know that you definitely wanted to go to the branch that you went to? Norb?
Give me that again?
Did you know when you joined the military you wanted to be a Marine?
I did.
Preston?
I went to the closest door to get me out of here.
Cork, the Air Force wasn't quick enough, right?
What?
The Air Force, you became a Marine.
Yeah.
You didn't step back like everybody else did, but didn't you also say something about the Air Force recruiter was slow?
Where I grew up was about 20 miles from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton. So many people in that little town, their husbands and things were stationed at Wright-Patterson. So this was in Berlin in I think it was about 1948 or 49, when the Germans or the Russians cut off the land route into Berlin. They started the airlift, so the Air Force had a big recruiting deal. And so another guy and myself decided we were going to join the Air Force. And so the guy, I lived about 15 miles outside of Dayton, and the recruiter stopped by my house about 7 o'clock in the morning, picked me up and took me down to the Air Force recruiting station, and went in there and was waiting for the guy to come in to swear us in. And about 5 o'clock at night, this was like 7 o'clock in the morning, we got there about 8 o'clock. At about 4:45, that guy wasn't there to swear us in. We had sat there all day long. And I decided that it was close to the bus station, so I went over and checked to see when the last bus I could get so I could go home. So I went back and told the guys, if he doesn't come in 5 minutes, I'm going to go home. And he didn't come, so I figured that if being in the Air Force is going to be sitting around waiting all that time, that wasn't for me. So, but anyway, he stayed there, and he said about 5 minutes after I left, the guy came. So anyway, that's how I didn't get into the Air Force.
So close. So close, wasn't it?
What?
You're so close.
So close.
I did try to eat in an Air Force DFAC overseas, and they kicked me out pretty quick. They said, we feed you, we got to feed y'all. I'm like, wow, like we're stray cats? But
we don't want you on our carpet.
Yeah. And I'm going to touch base on this here in a second, but
I have nothing against the air. It's just something between branches is all.
They eat better.
I may have this wrong, and I'm probably totally inappropriate for saying this, but Don Martindale, Don, I'm going to say your age, 95 years old? 95? And if you ever go to the community band concert, or if you're ever anywhere where they play the Armed Forces song,
Yes.
I'll tell you what, I swell with pride watching Don Martindale stand up when the Marine Corps song is played, because it's like he's back as a kid standing at attention when that song plays. It's one of the most impressive things that I have ever seen. I wish we had the song queued up, the Armed Forces song, but I'm going to step back up and make a few announcements. We're about done. And see if my mic's back on. Okay. So, a couple things that we need to address. You all have been a great audience. We thought we would be done 40 minutes ago. Apologize for that. But stories are great, and thank you, Justin, Cork, Preston, Norb, Christy, for sharing the stories that you shared. Thank yous have to go to the VFW, honoring hometown heroes, the MHS Alumni Foundation, the Veterans Foundation, Museum of St. Mary's, the American Legion Post 323, and Eagle 767. How about a round of applause for them sponsoring this event? If you would like one more chance to get that Yankee Doodle Desert Trip ticket, you can do it as I'm making some announcements, but we're about ready to draw. And again, that Yankee Doodle Desert Trip is airfare for 2, lodging for 3 nights, admission for 2 adults, 2-day pass to the Pima Air Space Museum, which includes the 390th Memorial Museum in Arizona, where Richard Bouchon works on Thursdays, 7 years older than Cork. We are going to show a quick video of the class of 1941 graduate, retired Colonel Richard Bouchon.
Richard's story began in St. Mary's, Ohio, on March 21st, 1923, the third son of B.H. Bouchon and the only child of Clara Kellermeyer Bouchon.
Well, I was born and raised in a little town in Ohio called St. Mary's on the western side of Ohio. And, what we did in the summertime, well, there was a big lake nearby. In fact, at that time, it was the largest artificial lake in the world. No longer true, but we'd go out to the lake and we'd spend our time swimming around that muddy water, and getting sunburned.
After graduating from St. Mary's Memorial High School in 1941, where he was the senior class president, his fascination with flight led him to Wright Field, where he joined the Army Air Force. He successfully completed pilot training and later qualified as a pilot to fly the famed B-17 Flying Fortress. World War II was raging in Europe when Richard, along with other B-17 crews, boarded the RMS Queen Elizabeth bound for England. Upon arrival, he was assigned to the 390th Bomb Group based in Framlingham Army Air Force Base, England. On December 30th, 1943, Richard flew his first mission on board the B-17 Dolly to bomb a chemical plant deep into Germany. Over the next 5 months, Richard flew a total of 28 combat missions targeting enemy infrastructure and war supply structures such as a rocket installation in France, an airfield near Paris, a German aircraft factory, a shipyard, and the Heinkel assembly plant. All while flying through anti-aircraft fire and fending off German fighters.
I never got home in 28 missions without holes in the airplane. So always got some holes, sometimes a lot of them. The flak was intense over all of the target areas, very intense.
Richard would note in his daily ledger that it was a thrill for me, a kid from a small town in Ohio, to fly over Paris and see the Notre Dame Cathedral. During World War II, B-17 crews were known to adorn the nose of their bombers with artwork and christen them with names. Richard flew missions as co-pilot and later as command pilot aboard B-17s with names like Dolly, Johnny Walker, Geronimo, Yankee Doodle Dandy, Gloria Ann, Wild Children, Lucky Strike, and Belle of the Brawl. Richard also met James Cagney, an actor who won an Oscar for portraying a pilot who flew a plane named the Yankee Doodle Dandy. Richard is pictured with Cagney when he christened the B-17 Yankee Doodle Dandy that Richard flew on his 4th mission in February 1944. On April 13, 1944, as command pilot of Belle of the Brawl, Richard recorded his narrowest escape from disaster when he flew through one of the worst flak storms ever raised by German gunners. It was his 28th and last combat mission to bomb the Messerschmitt plane factories at Augsburg, Germany. As they headed home, the Belle of the Brawl was so severely damaged by flak that she lost 3 of her 4 engines and 1 crewman was wounded. The bomber fell out of formation and headed towards England alone. After a lot of praying and by the grace of God, Richard nestled the Belle of the Brawl onto the runway at Framlingham, only to discover there were no brakes. Rather than running off the end of the runway and crashing, Richard gunned the last remaining engine, forcing the bomber off the runway and into the soft English mud, saving the aircraft and crew. From a 2025 interview, Richard said that the B-17 Boneyard was at the end of the runway. He didn't want to put the Belle of the Brawl in it while he was still on board. For his actions, Richard Bushong was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross and multiple air medals. The Belle of the Brawl flew again 25 days later, only to be shot down over Germany with loss of life. Upon his return to St. Mary's, Richard was assigned as a test pilot at Wright Field, where he had the opportunity to fly his mother over St. Mary's on board a Flying Fortress. He also took the opportunity to fly low over the paper mill until all the employees, including his father, spilled out to watch. During the Korean War conflict, Richard Bushong served a tour of duty in Alaska. When the Vietnam conflict kicked off, Richard Bushong, now a colonel, was assigned as the commander of an F-4 Phantom maintenance wing in Da Nang, South Vietnam, where he had the opportunity to fly combat missions over Vietnam.
I enjoyed it. It was a good career. Yeah, I would do it all over again, but I don't think they'll let me. Not at 102.
Richard Bushong retired from the Air Force in 1974, receiving the Meritorious Service Medal for his 32 years of service. In 1988, Richard and his family were driving through Tucson, Arizona, where he walked into the 390th Bomber Group Memorial Museum. Richard never left Tucson or the museum. To this day, at the age of 102, he volunteers every Thursday lecturing young people about the service and sacrifice of the men who flew the Flying Fortress. For his dedicated service, flying 28 combat missions over enemy-occupied Europe in World War II, for 32 years of service in the Army Air Force Reserves, and U.S. Air Force, including serving during the Korean War and completing a 1-year tour in Vietnam, the St. Mary's Memorial High School Alumni Foundation inducts Colonel Richard D. Bushong into the St. Mary's Memorial High School Alumni Foundation Hall of Fame for military service to country.
How incredible. An incredible night. Kim Ryer from the MHS Alumni Foundation for you. Sweet. Gail, are you out here? Come on down. You're a lucky winner for all the great things that you do for the MHS Foundation. Gail Mason-Brink, unbelievable talent, and she does great things for not only the MHS Alumni Foundation, but for so many organizations, private entities, etc. Gail, thank you so much. Yeah, you would think we would have got the panelists a gift. Turn around. They snuck them behind you. gifts behind you are for you. Thank you, panelists, for all that you have done in coming and sharing your stories with all of us in our celebration of Veterans Day. Take a look at this. Yeah, we'll get a group picture with all of these afterwards, but Kim, who did these?
Ted Copeland did them for us. They are awesome.
Okay. And it's time to see who the winners are. We've got a 50-50, and we have the Richard Bouchon Tucson trip. So we're going to have two winners. Lights up. And we're all winners here.
Okay, thanks.
We're all winners because of veterans. And if you served, would you at this time please stand to be recognized that we are all winners because of you? Please stand. Thank you all. Thank you all. Preston, would you mind spinning that several times, please? Again, the Yankee Doodle Desert trip. Keep spinning until I stop here. Airfare for two. It'll be a reimbursement. You'll work with us. Lodging for 3 nights. Admission 2 adults for a 2-day pass into the Pima Air and Space Museum. Includes the 390th Memorial Museum in Arizona. Preston, please pull out 1 ticket to see who the lucky winner is of this amazing trip and opportunity. Except we need a key. Michael? Ha! Suspense is great.
All my keys to everything.
He's got to go through each key to figure out which one. All right. Drum roll, please. The winner. The pride of Auglaize County Sheriff's Office, Aaron Schultze. Woo! Schultze. So Schultze, you will work with us to get this all organized and.
I'd like for Chid to have it. That's okay. No, I love you, buddy, but no. You go.
We'll let you work that out. Wowzers. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the conclusion. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully this is worth doing again and again to celebrate our veterans. Hopefully a story's been told that has been entertaining, educational, enlightening, and elevates your perspective. Thanks so much for being here. God bless you. God bless the USA. God bless these people up here.